And I do just want to say, I hope you realize how much all of us have struggled with this, because for a path that doesn't have safety concerns, it's a beautiful design. It would be lovely, but there's some significant issues.
Well, we recognize that as well, and I think, you know, the fact we've invested many months and many hours of both volunteer and paid design time to try to address this as best we can. So.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Jeez, that took even longer than I thought it would.
It's empty. Well, we have one more item on the agenda. This is the tree study session for street trees.
See what you've been missing all these
Okay, so this is a study session. The City Council had the study session earlier in the year, and their recommendation was that the Planning Commission also benefit from the study session. So the topics that are going to be covered, myself and Molly are going to tag team here. So the first is the key regulations that affect the street trees, a little bit about tree inventory, planting, and tree fund. Then Molly is going to talk about tree selection, planting, and protection. And then I will finish up with some policy direction that we are seeking from you regarding tree removal and replacement, as well as modifications to the Urban Forestry Ordinance. What is a street tree? Any tree in the public right-of-way and on land owned by the city. Who maintains it? It lies with the property owners, except in areas zoned medium-density residential, or RM. What happens when a sidewalk is damaged? It's the owners of commercial and industrial property are responsible for maintaining the sidewalks abutting their lots. And in practice, the city has not had a program to request owners repair damaged sidewalks. Generally, a request for sidewalk improvement and or repair is associated with building and or planning permit. Regarding tree planting and removal, the Planning Commission approval is required to remove any street tree. Tree removal permit requires planting of replacement trees of equal and cumulative diameter of the tree removed, plus payment of replacement value fee of the tree removed. You heard a little bit about it in the first item. If the need for the tree removal is not the fault of the owner, the ordinance allows the Commission to waive the requirement to replace tree or the payment of replacement value fee. Tree inventory, planting, and tree fund. And this is stuck again, and I'm not sure why it does this. All right, there you go. So the Department of Public Works keeps a GIS-based inventory of all street trees. The last time that the survey was done was in 2008, where about 3,800 tree wells were in the city, of which 6% were vacant or occupied by stumps. Since that survey, there have been several projects implemented that have installed new trees. These include the Park Avenue Beautification Project, the Emery Park, and various private projects. The Public Works is in the process of updating this tree inventory in order to capture these recent changes. And this is sort of the map showing where the tree wells and the vacant tree wells and the stumps exist around the city.
That's from a couple of years ago, right?
This was 2008. So how does tree planting occur in the city? The street trees are planted as part of private planning projects. The city may also install street trees depending on availability of funds. In 2008-09, there was a Triangle Neighborhood Tree Planting Project that was done. Currently, the Public Works budget includes a line item of $5,000 each fiscal year to purchase and install new trees. And this would allow about 30 new street trees per year, which is the cost of $150 per 24-inch box tree. But this would not include planting in structural soil. Planting in structural soil would cost about $1,200 to $8,000 per tree, depending on the size of the tree and the species of the tree. There is a UFO fund. And a tree removal permit includes payment of replacement value fee for the street tree removed, and this is where that money goes in. The ordinance also allows collection of civil penalties if a person removes or damages street trees at the rate of 3 times the replacement value fee, plus city's incurred appraisal costs. So these are the sources of the fund. The existing balance is about $42,000. So I'm going to hand over to Molly, who's going to give us a little bit about tree selection, planting, and protection.
Nice to be here. Thank you. Okay, so I start off with this picture because this is a successful tree planting. Trees are planted high. They were, the sites were dug out. They were mulched, watered correctly, protected. And I start this off because we know how to plant trees correctly now. We have all the information. And even though this is not on the urban landscape, which has its own set of issues, we still know how to do that with the urban landscape too. So, all right. So this is what we're all going to be talking about: what the vital information is. All right. So what is failure? This is failure, and we go around our streets and we see uplifted pavement, branches being hit by cars and ripped out, trees just not thriving. And when does failure occur? It occurs all the time. And we say it occurs in any one step of the planning process. These are London plane trees. They were not provided an adequate soil. The trees were put in probably holes big enough for the root ball, and the rest of the site wasn't dug out, and now they have anthracnose pretty bad. So yeah, so when does failure occur? Lack of understanding of the site conditions, knowledge of the plantings, of the species that you're going to be planting. You know, if you go to the nursery and you pick out a tree that has girdling roots, that's a failure. Lack of proper maintenance, that includes, I'm sorry, that includes structural pruning, so, and water and soil compaction are critical. All right, and also I just want to talk about tree protection. You know, most times when we try to protect trees during construction, it doesn't work. And it's really lack of either adequate protection measures, or the contractor's just not compliant. So this happens all the time. So what we say is when you plant a tree, you really need to go and look at the site and find out the site limitations. What is the wind and sun exposure? What is the above ground things? Is there power lines that are going to, you know, the tree's going to have to be cut? Is there you know, blacktop that is going to lift? So you have to know all the above ground limitations and also the below ground. Like, what is the soil like? What kind of texture does it have? Is it clay? Is it sand? You know, is it anaerobic? Is it compaction? All these things need to be addressed, and we need to figure out what the limitations are. And then after that, then we can choose a species right for the site. We can modify the site, whatever we need to do. So special situations, planting in turf, you know, you need to plant the trees high. If you plant them too low, the water's going to fill in the hole and the tree's going to drown. Planting close to hardscape, we're going to talk about different under pavement treatments that we can use to prevent that uplift of pavement. And also, if the site analysis understands that the soil is toxic, we might want to change the soil altogether. We're finding a lot of heavy metals in soil, and if there's zinc or lead, the trees cannot physically pull up any water and nutrients or anything. So, and then what we were talking about earlier, what size pot are you going to be planting the tree? So we say that large trees require an excess of 2,000 cubic feet of rootable soil, medium trees 1,500, small trees 600. And we really want to give them the most amount of soil possible. So if we're going to plant a tree in a 3x3 space and not give it anything, then it's just going to look like just going to be surviving. The average life of a street tree right now is about 7 years. And that means because a lot of trees actually die after they're planted, and you know what they look like. They're just kind of scraggly. And and soil volume also is limited by lack of oxygen. Trees require oxygen for their roots. So anyway, this is an example of limited soil volume. As you can see, these are incense cedars. The two small trees on the left is where the medium kind of bottle-nosed, and it's a good example of just they were all planted at the same time, but those are obviously not as thriving, even though the other ones aren't very thriving either. Okay, so what tree roots need? Okay, so we know that roots cannot physically penetrate soil that's over 85% compacted. And under pavement, engineering requirements really make it so that the soil is 95% compacted and tree roots just won't grow there. Soil chemistry, pH, salinity, that all has to be in line with tree roots. And oxygen. Roots do not take up anything if it's not being bonded by an oxygen molecule. So roots cannot take up any water or nutrients or anything. That oxygen is needed to do that work. And if there's no oxygen in the soil because of soil compaction or flooding, or the tree is not going to thrive. So, and we know that if a tree is the extension of its limbs are only about this much a year, then we know that's exactly what the roots are doing too. So it's directly related. So methods to increase soil volume. Emeryville has done some of these. I don't know actually if they have used a Silvacell, but this is just a way that you can put the pavement on top so that there's really rootable soil down in the bottom. But you have used structural soil. And this is just basically a mixture of rock and soil, about 3 parts rock to 1 part soil. And so it can be compacted down, and it forms a matrix where there's oxygen and and water filtration and everything within that. And then what we say is if you just put 6 inches of clean drain rock on top of that structural soil, roots will not want to get up into that because it doesn't have any water or nutrient holding capacity at all. So roots will actually stay down in the structural soil. Also, dig bigger sites. This was a picture taken from the Berkeley University median, where that site was dug down 5 feet. And when we did site analysis the first time, we found that it was about a foot of really good soil, followed by compacted road base, followed by a compacted clay. And there was no way that those trees were going to grow. But we somehow got it down, so we dug that median out to 5 feet and amended it with compost, and those trees are looking really good, much better than most medium trees I see. Okay, so so if there could be one point that that you can take back with you, is that there's always budget constraints and everything, and what we say is that if you have a limited amount of money, it's really better to plant fewer trees, but plant them correctly, rather than say, oh, we planted 100 trees, with this grant or with this money, and all those trees are, either going to die or going to never thrive, or in the future are going to lift up the pavement, and so their roots are going to have to be cut, and then it just sends those trees down into a spiral of decline. So we see all this from happening. So we have the information, and we can do it. We just have to make educated decisions about our tree planting. So then this just talks about, this is more, we're not going to go into that. And what I said before is that, really you need to go to